Does this mean that the U.S. can rely on other countries to help pull itself out of trouble, even in a recession? My next guest says absolutely, and it's already happening, and we just might be witnessing history. To see what's really going on, we turn to renowned economist C. Fred Bergsten, director of the Peterson Institute for International Economics. Welcome to the show. Are you saying that the U.S. is no longer the straw that stirs the global economic drink?
The U.S. is still the strongest individual country, but our share of the world total has gone down a lot. The most dramatic change is that the emerging market economies, China, India, Russia, Korea, Mexico, Brazil, and others of that type, now account for fully half the world economy. They are growing as a group in the 6 to 7% range, some, like India and China, growing 8, 9, even 10%. Their growth is keeping the world economy moving ahead quite robustly, even as we slip toward recession. In fact, that's so much the case that they're cushioning our decline. The U.S. economy has not been growing much for the last 6 months, only about 1%, but the total amount of that growth is due to our improved trade performance, the big increase in our exports to those emerging market economies, and to Europe and some others as well. So it's what I call reverse coupling of the world economy. Not only have the rest of the world decoupled from their traditional dependence on the United States, we've reverse coupled, and they're actually pulling us up, cushioning our decline, keeping us from falling underwater.
But Fred, that's sort of contradictory in the sense that, yeah, these countries are growing, but they're growing from their exports to the United States. If we were to stop importing their goods, then wouldn't those economies go back to the levels that they've always been?
No, they're not growing primarily because of their exports to the United States. They're growing primarily because of very rapid growth in their internal demand. In fact, what I'm indicating is that even though we're still running a big trade deficit, it's coming down rapidly. The improvement in our trade balance, the relatively rapid growth of our exports while our imports are flat for the last year or so, means that we are taking advantage of the growth of domestic demand in those other countries. So they're not relying on our domestic demand and expanding their trade surpluses. It's the other way around. They're growing rapidly at home, consumer demand, rapid investment and the like. We're taking advantage of that, getting an increase in output here in our economy, even though we're not generating any increase in final demand domestically at all.
Yeah, but Fred, to a certain degree, a lot of these countries you talk about are driven in part by the boom in commodities, which we know is going to be short-lived. It cannot go on the way it is. What happens when these economies eventually slow? China is going to have its version of 1929 at some point. Then what happens?
No, I don't think so. China is not being driven by the commodity price boom. In fact, China is a big importer of energy, food, most other raw materials. China competes with us to import primary products of that type. There are a few countries that meet your description: Brazil, Argentina, Australia, Canada to some extent, and they are getting a temporary windfall from the high prices in commodities. On the other hand, it's not clear that those commodity prices are going to go down very much in the near future. There's a big increase in rapid economic growth around the world, as I said, despite our slowdown. That's keeping those markets strong. The increase in output of those products has been pretty sluggish and will take some time to catch up to that rise in demand. So those higher prices may stay there for quite some time. But China, India, those countries are importers of those primary products, and their growth is not going to be hurt when commodity prices go down.
C. Fred Bergsten, thank you very much for being on the show.